Imagine a world where after a nuclear blast, 99% of people physically cannot stand being touched. The very thought of intimacy makes them sick. Meanwhile, the remaining 1% whose libidos survived are forced to perform in neon cages, screwing on stage for hundreds of pissed-off voyeurs. Think it's some cycle's fever dream? Nah, that's just a classic plot from 1980s sci-fi. Back then, directors weren't chasing Oscars. They just took sci-fi, drowned it in nudity, and waited to see who would snap first, the audience or the censors. Today, we've dug up 10 more rare, wild, and frankly embarrassing flicks that modern producers prefer to ignore. We've got people hooking up with breathing TVs, students crossbred with predatory weeds, and total control over someone else's flesh. Get comfortable. It's about to get very uncomfortable. Let's begin. Number 10. Café Flesh, 1982. The apocalypse in cinema usually involves zombies, mohawks, and guys fighting over the last drop of gasoline. But back in 1982, director Rince Dream decided that the end of the world should be way more awkward. Welcome to Café Flesh, a post-apocalyptic flick born in the gritty underground that takes the concept of a sexless future to a whole new level of uncomfortable. The premise here is a total evolutionary joke. After a nuclear war, 99% of the survivors become what the movie calls sex negatives. This doesn't just mean they lost interest, it means they are physically, biologically incapable of touching another human being without throwing up or collapsing in agonizing pain. But a tiny 1% minority, the sex positives, somehow kept their libidos intact. Now, you'd think these lucky few would be running the world, right? Wrong. In this bleak neon-lit dystopia, the sex negatives are bitter, angry, and in charge. They force the remaining sex positives to act as performers in a sleazy underground nightclub called Café Flesh. The job description? Get on stage and sleep with each other in a neon cage while hundreds of frustrated, touch-deprived audience members watch and suffer through their own jealousy. The movie doesn't waste time on high-budget special effects or deep philosophical monologues. It's cheap, it's grainy, and it feels like a weird documentary from a timeline that went horribly wrong. It's less about the thrill of erotica and more about the depressing reality of human desire turned into a mandatory circus act. If you want a film that turns the concept of intimacy into a cold, transactional nightmare on a dirty stage, this is your starting point. Number 9. Videodrome, 1983. Next up, we have David Cronenberg's Videodrome, a movie that essentially predicted modern internet addiction, but wrapped it in a sickening package of late-night cable TV, leather, and body mutations. The story follows Max Wren, a sleazy, cynical TV executive running a low-budget UHF channel that thrives on cheap thrills, softcore porn, and violence. Max is always looking for the next big thing to hook his viewers, and he finds it in an encrypted, pirated satellite signal called Videodrome. It's just a raw, unedited broadcast of people being tortured and abused in a red room. No plot, no actors, just pure, unfiltered cruelty. Max thinks it's brilliant marketing. His new girlfriend, Nikki Brand, played by Debbie Harley, gets so turned on by it that she immediately leaves to audition for the show. But here is where the sci-fi kicks in and things get incredibly trippy. It turns out Videodrome isn't just a TV show, it's a weapon. The signal carries a broadcast frequency that causes a physical brain tumor in anyone who watches it. This tumor gives you severe reality-bending hallucinations, forcing your mind and your body to physically merge with technology. Max starts losing his grip on what's real and what's television. He watches his TV screen breathe, grow lips, and literally seduce him. Later on, a literal organic slit opens up in his stomach, turning his torso into a living VCR where people shove videocassettes to reprogram his brain. Cronenberg doesn't care about making a pretty movie. He wants to show you the ugly, sweaty, sticky intersection of human flesh and plastic electronics. It's a cynical look at how media doesn't just entertain us, it rewires our biology, transforms our fetishes, and eventually consumes us entirely. Number 8. The Mutations, 1974. If you think modern mad scientist movies are weird, you haven't seen anything from the 1970s underground British. The Mutations, also known as The Freakmaker, takes the classic mad doctor trope and drags it straight through the mud, carnival sideshows, and severe genetic perversion. The story revolves around Dr. Noelter, a completely unhinged biology professor who is deeply convinced that the future of human evolution lies in plants. Specifically, he wants to crossbreed human beings with predatory carnivorous vegetation. Why? Because, according to his logic, plants are the ultimate survivors. To test his brilliant theory, he does what any respectable scientist would do. He pays a creepy carnival freak show owner to kidnap young, attractive college students. Once the students are in his clinical basement, the clothing comes off and the nightmare begins. Dr. Noelter straps these naked, vulnerable bodies to laboratory tables and pumps them full of plant DNA. What follows is a slow, deeply uncomfortable body horror transformation. We are talking about beautiful young women slowly turning into living, breathing plant monsters, getting tangled up in giant, throbbing, phallic vines and roots. The movie is cheap, gritty, and incredibly exploitative. It doesn't give you a clean, sleek laboratory. It feels sweaty, dirty, and genuinely freakish, mostly because the director actually hired real-life carnival performers for the background scenes. It hits your sci-fi or porn bait perfectly, balancing right on the line between a sci-fi genetic experiment and the bizarre, taboo objectification of the human body. It's awkward, it's slimy, and it's exactly the kind of forgotten cinema we are looking for. Number 7. Android, 1982. Next, we are heading into deep space, but don't expect any heroic Star Wars battles here. Android is a claustrophobic, low-budget psychological sci-fi flick produced by the legendary king of B-movies, Roger Corman. It's a movie completely obsessed with synthetic flesh, isolation, and robotic fetishes. The setting is a desolate, rusted research station floating in the middle of nowhere. It's occupied by Dr. Daniel, a brilliant but lonely scientist, and his assistant Max, who happens to be an advanced, human-looking android. Dr. Daniel is working on his ultimate masterpiece, Cassandra, a flawless, incredibly attractive female android. Max is fascinated by her, but Cassandra is kept inactive, frozen in a glass tube like a high-tech mannequin. Everything changes when a trio of dangerous escaped convicts breaks into the station. Among them is a woman named Maggie. Max, who's never seen a real human female before, instantly becomes obsessed with her. This is where the film ditches the regular sci-fi plot and dives straight into a weird exploration of sexuality. Max starts using the station's cameras to spy on Maggie, learning about human intimacy, passion, and arousal through pure digital voyeurism. Meanwhile, Cassandra gets activated, and things get even stranger. You get this cold, mechanical friction where the characters are exploring their bodies, desires, and control. The movie treats the female android body as the ultimate forbidden fruit, a plastic, perfect object designed for pleasure and obedience, which slowly starts gaining its own dark, violent consciousness. It's a cynical, slow-burn look at how technology can turn human lust into a sterile, pre-programmed simulation. Number 6. Le Prix du Danger, 1983. Long before Hollywood gave us The Running Man or The Hunger Games, the French drop-kicked everyone with a far more cynical, gritty, and deeply perverted take on reality TV. Le Prix du Danger, or The Prize of Peril, is a dystopian sci-fi satire that treats human life as the ultimate primetime commodity. The plot follows François Jacquemort, a broke, unemployed guy who is desperate enough to sign up for the country's most popular television game show. The rules are beautifully simple and completely psycho. Francois has to reach a specific location in the city. The catch? He is being hunted in real time by 5 professional, heavily armed killers. If he survives, he walks away a multi-millionaire. If he fails, he dies alive on camera while millions of regular citizens watch from their couches eating snacks. Now, where is this sci-fi or porn vibe here? It's all about the psychological exhibitionism and the crowd's sick, voyeuristic arousal. The movie shows a society so numbed by technology and media that violence and public humiliation have become the ultimate aphrodisiacs. The cameras follow Francois everywhere, even into his most private, intimate moments of terror, sweat, and vulnerability. There are no flashy Hollywood explosions here. It's shot like a cheap, tacky 1980s TV broadcast, making it feel uncomfortably real and trashy. It's a cynical look at how the media doesn't just control what we watch, it commodifies our basic survival instincts, turning blood, fear, and raw human flesh into a commercial break sponsored by big corporations. Number 5. Thirst, 1979. Next up, we are heading down under for a weird piece of Australian sci-fi horror called Thirst. Forget about capes and castles. This movie takes the ancient myth of vampirism and gives it a cold, clinical, high-tech upgrade that feels like an erotic medical nightmare. The story drops us into the life of Kate Davis, a completely ordinary, modern woman who gets kidnapped by a shadowy elite organization known as the Brotherhood. It turns out these guys aren't just a regular cult. They are an ancient, secret society of vampires who run the entire world from behind the scenes using advanced technology and massive corporate wealth. Instead of biting people in dark alleys like traditional monsters, the Brotherhood has modernized the whole operation. They drag Kate to a massive, sterile, isolated compound that looks like a high-end, futuristic clinic. Inside, they maintain huge underground human cattle farms. We're talking about rooms filled with brainwashed, drugged-up, completely naked people hooked up to automated industrial machines that slowly pump the blood out of their bodies like milk from cows. Kate is brought in because she's a direct descendant of Elizabeth Bathory, and they want her to embrace her heritage and join the elite. To break her mind, they subject her to hallucination-inducing drugs, surreal, erotically charged mind trips, and forced dependency. The film is packed with cold, clinical nudity and a heavy atmosphere of helplessness. It plays perfectly into the theme of losing absolute control over your own body, transforming the act of feeding into a sterile, corporate, and highly sexualized routine. It's weird, it's deeply uncomfortable, and it perfectly fits the bill. Number 4. Star Virgin, 1979. If you think Western sci-fi from the late 70s was pushing boundaries, Japanese cinema was busy jumping over them completely naked. Star Virgin, or Uchu Kaiju Gamera trash-style erotica, is a bizarre, hyper-sexualized sci-fi comedy that plays out like a fever dream after watching too much Ultraman and late-night adult channels. The setup is beautifully brainless. A race of incredibly attractive alien women arrives on Earth because their home planet is facing a total reproductive crisis. They are dying out, and the only way to save their civilization is to harvest human libido and sexual energy. But they don't just ask it for it politely. They use futuristic gadgets, neon-lit traps, and mind-control tricks to seduce regular, clueless Earth guys and drain their life force during the act. Why does this hit the sci-fi or porn bait perfectly? Because the entire movie is a non-stop parade of campy sci-fi costumes, plastic spaceship interiors, and a massive amount of nudity. The directors didn't care about a deep plot. They just wanted to throw together giant rubber monsters, space lasers, and girls losing their clothes every 5 minutes. It's loud, it's completely ridiculous, and it treats the male body as nothing more than a battery for alien hot chicks. If you want to show your audience the absolute peak of cheesy, taboo Asian sci-fi exploitation, this is the golden standard. Number 3. Death Watch, 1980. Moving from Japanese craziness to a much darker, colder kind of perversion, Death Watch, directed by Bertrand Tavernier, is a dystopian drama that basically predicted modern webcam culture and Twitch streaming, but with a highly illegal and toxic twist. The film introduces us to Roddy, played by Harvey Keitel, Roddy is a television reporter who undergoes a horrific surgical procedure. He gets a high-tech digital camera implanted directly behind his eyes. Everything he looks at is instantly broadcast live to a television network. The network's big new project is a reality show tracking the final days of Catherine, a young woman who has been diagnosed with a terminal, incurable illness. She wants to die in private, but the media company tricks her, and Roddy is sent to secretly stalk her and stream her slow decline to millions of viewers. The eroticism here is deeply psychological and voyeuristic. Roddy has to stay close to Catherine 24/7, capturing her most intimate, vulnerable, and naked moments of fear, grief, and physical breakdown. The movie explores the sickening thrill of watching someone without their consent, turning human tragedy into a dirty, profitable spectacle. It's a cynical, slow-burn sci-fi that doesn't rely on spaceships, but on the terrifying idea that in the future, privacy is dead, and your most private flesh and emotions are just content for a crowd that is constantly starving for a new thrill. Number 2. City of Women, 1980. If you think a sci-fi dystopia always needs lasers and ruined skyscrapers, Federico Fellini is here to prove you wrong with a psychological, hallucinatory nightmare. City of Women is essentially a 2-hour panic attack wrapped in beautiful cinematography, heavy erotica, and total male vulnerability. The movie kicks off with Snaporaz, played by the legendary Marcello Mastroianni, a classic aging playboy who follows a beautiful, mysterious woman off a train. He wanders into the woods and stumbles straight into a massive, surreal hotel that is currently hosting a radical feminist convention. From the second he steps inside, the sci-fi or porn bait hits full throttle. Snaporaz finds himself trapped in a bizarre alternative reality where his traditional masculinity, his deepest sexual fetishes, and his primal fears are put on trial by hundreds of aggressive and uncompromising women. Fellini doesn't care about a logical plot. He builds a dystopian funhouse. Snaporaz gets chased through neon-lit corridors, trapped in roller coasters of his own childhood sexual memories, and forced to face a giant, terrifying, inflatable caricature of his ideal woman. The film is packed with nudity, grotesque erotic imagery, and a suffocating sense of losing control. It's a cynical and highly ironic look at a man who spent his whole life viewing women as nothing more than sexual objects, only to find himself completely swallowed alive, judged and humiliated by his own desires. It's wild, it's artsy, and it's a perfect setup before our number 1 spot. Number 1. Island of the Fishmen, 1979. Forget about Hollywood's The Shape of Water and its sweet romantic take on sea creatures. Back in 1979, Italian director Sergio Martino gave us the real, unfiltered deal with Island of the Fishmen, a movie that takes the classic sci-fi tropes of mad genetics, sunken continents, and completely drowns them in sweat, slime, and heavy exploitation. The story drops a group of shipwreck survivors onto a mysterious, uncharted volcanic island. The place is ruled by a wealthy, ruthlessly corrupt man named Edmund Rackham, who lives in a luxurious mansion with his captive, stunningly attractive girlfriend, Amanda. But Rackham isn't just chilling on the beach. He's funding a completely unhinged scientist, Professor Marvin. The professor has managed to genetically engineer a race of amphibious, scaly, half-human, half-fish monsters. Now, why does this hold the absolute number 1 spot for your sci-fi or porn bait? Because the movie is completely obsessed with the physical, wet friction between these grotesque, slimy creatures and the humans, specifically the beautiful, barely clothed women on the island. The fishmen don't just swim around. They carry out Rackham's dirty work, kidnapping women, dragging them into underground caves, and keeping them trapped in damp, claustrophobic cells. Martino doesn't waste time on high-class CGI. He uses real, practical, rubbery suits that look sweaty, sticky, and genuinely uncomfortable to watch. It is a non-stop parade of torn clothes, wet scales, and weird, taboo biological tension. It's the ultimate B-movie masterpiece that completely blurs the line between a sci-fi genetic experiment and a trashy, erotic nightmare. It's loud, it's wet, it's completely inappropriate, and it is the perfect, chaotic way to end our descent into the forbidden archives. So there you have it. 10 more forgotten relics from an era when filmmakers actually had the balls to mix spaceships with pure, unadulterated sleaze. Now you tell me in the comments, which one of these felt more like actual sci-fi, and which one was just a straight-up adult flick disguised as a trip to outer space? If you survived this list and your eyes aren't bleeding yet, do the usual algorithm stuff. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who thinks modern movies are edgy. We've still got plenty of weird, dusty tapes hidden in the back of the archives, so don't go too far. See you in the next one. Peace.